The champagne flowed freely at the Hendersons' anniversary party, crystal glasses catching the warm glow of string lights draped across their backyard. Sarah Mitchell stood near the bar, her red dress catching eyes as intended, her laughter ringing out across the crowd. She felt electric tonight, alive in a way she hadn't in months. Across the patio, her husband David talked quietly with his college friend Mike, both men nursing beers and occasionally glancing at the crowd. Sarah caught his eye and felt a familiar frustration bloom in her chest. There he was, dependable, steady, predictable David. Always watching, never dancing. Always present, never exciting. They'd been married 8 years, together for 12, and somewhere along the way, the spark had dimmed. Not extinguished, Sarah told herself, just banked. Like coals waiting for oxygen. She tried talking to him about it 6 months ago, suggesting they needed more excitement, more spontaneity. He'd nodded, promised to try, and then continued being exactly who he'd always been. Tonight, emboldened by wine and the festive atmosphere, Sarah decided to conduct a little experiment. Would David even notice if another man paid attention to her? Would he care? Or would he just stand there with that same calm expression, that maddening composure that made her feel invisible? James Morrison provided the perfect opportunity. He was one of the Hendersons' neighbors, recently divorced, with silver at his temples and an easy confidence that drew people in. Sarah had chatted with him at neighborhood gatherings before, harmless small talk, nothing more. But tonight, she approached him with purpose. "James," she called out, touching his arm. "I haven't seen you all evening." His smile was warm, welcoming. "Sarah, you look stunning. That dress is dangerous." She laughed, leaning closer than necessary. "Dangerous? I like that." From the corner of her eye, she could see David still talking with Mike, seemingly oblivious. Good. Let him see what it felt like to be ignored. What Sarah didn't know was that David had noticed the moment she touched James's arm. He'd noticed because he'd been watching her all evening, the same way he'd watched her for 12 years, with love, with concern, with growing sadness. He'd seen her restlessness growing, felt her pulling away despite his attempts to bridge the distance between them. "Everything okay?" Mike asked, following his friend's gaze. "I don't know anymore," David said quietly. Sarah's flirtation escalated. She laughed too loudly at James's jokes, placed her hand on his chest, leaned in to whisper in his ear. Other guests began to notice, conversations pausing as eyes tracked the scene unfolding. The Hendersons exchanged worried glances. James, to his credit, seemed uncomfortable. "Sarah, maybe we should." "Should what?" She spun to face him, her back now to David. "Dance? I'd love to." She grabbed his hand, pulling him toward the makeshift dance floor where other couples swayed to soft jazz. David set down his beer and started walking toward them. Mike caught his arm. "Don't make a scene, man. Not here." David paused, and in that moment, something fundamental shifted inside him. He'd spent 8 years accommodating Sarah's moods, trying to be what she needed, bending himself into shapes that didn't quite fit. He'd suggested counseling twice. She'd said they didn't need it. He'd planned surprise trips. She'd complained about the destinations. He'd asked what she wanted. She'd said she didn't know. But standing there, watching his wife drape herself over another man at a party full of their friends, David suddenly knew exactly what he needed to do. Not in anger, not in spite, but in clarity. This wasn't a marriage anymore. It was a performance, and he was tired of playing his assigned role. He turned to Mike. "You're right. No scene." His voice was steady, almost calm. "Can you give me a ride home?" Mike studied his friend's face and saw something there that worried him more than anger would have, resignation. "Yeah, of course. You sure?" David took one last look at Sarah, now laughing with her head thrown back, James's hand awkwardly placed on her waist. "I've never been more sure of anything." They left quietly, and Sarah didn't notice until much later. Sarah woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar curtains and a headache pounding behind her eyes. She lay still for a moment, piecing together the previous night through fragments of memory blurred by too much champagne. The party. The laughter. James. Oh God. James. She bolted upright, looking around the Hendersons' guest room where she'd apparently spent the night. Her red dress lay across a chair, and she was wearing borrowed pajamas. The last clear memory she had was around midnight, dancing, laughing, and then Karen Henderson's concerned face, suggesting she sleep it off rather than drive home. Where was David? Sarah found her phone on the nightstand. No messages. No missed calls. That was odd. David always checked on her. She pulled up their text thread and saw her own message from 1:47 a.m., staying at Henderson's. Had too much fun. His response, sent at 1:50 a.m., was brief, okay. Just okay. Not feel better or see you tomorrow or even we need to talk. Just a single word that somehow felt loaded with meaning she was too hungover to decode. She showered quickly, thanked a tight-lipped Karen Henderson for the hospitality, and drove home with her windows down, trying to clear her head. The morning air was crisp, carrying the scent of autumn leaves and the promise of change. Their house looked normal from the outside, the small craftsman bungalow they'd bought 5 years ago, blue shutters freshly painted, garden bed David had weeded last weekend. But when she pulled into the driveway, she noticed his car was gone. Saturday morning, he'd usually be making breakfast, reading the paper at the kitchen table. Inside, the silence felt different. Heavy. Purposeful. David, she called out, setting her keys in the bowl by the door. No answer. The living room looked the same, their wedding photo still on the mantel, his reading glasses on the side table, yesterday's newspaper folded neatly on the ottoman. But something felt off. Sarah walked through to the kitchen and found a note on the counter, held down by her favorite coffee mug. Her hands shook slightly as she picked it up, recognizing David's precise handwriting. Sarah. I'm staying at Mike's for a few days. I need some space to think. I suggest you do the same. We'll talk when I'm ready. David. Space to think? They'd had arguments before, disagreements about money or in-laws or whose turn it was to clean the gutters. He'd never left before. Never needed space. Sarah's phone buzzed, a text from her friend Monica. Are you okay? Karen told me what happened at the party. Call me. Then another, from another friend. Thinking of you today. And another. If you need to talk, I'm here. Her chest tightened. What were people saying? What had they seen? She scrolled through her memories again, trying to reconstruct the evening. She'd been flirting with James, yes, but it was harmless. Wasn't it? Just a bit of fun, a way to feel seen, to test whether David still cared enough to feel jealous. She called David. It went to voicemail immediately, he'd turned off his phone. She tried again. Same result. Panic began to creep in, cold fingers around her heart. This wasn't like him. David didn't shut people out. David talked things through. David was reasonable, patient, understanding to a fault. She sent a text. David, please call me. We can talk about last night. I'm sorry if I upset you. Then another. It wasn't what it looked like. I just had too much to drink. And another. Please come home. The messages showed as delivered but unread. Hours passed. Sarah tried to distract herself with laundry, with cleaning, with mindless television. She replayed the previous night over and over, trying to see it through David's eyes instead of her own. The touching, the laughing, the dancing. Had she gone too far? It was just flirting, just testing the waters, just trying to get a reaction. The reaction she'd gotten wasn't the one she'd wanted. By evening, David still hadn't responded. Sarah called Mike's number. Hello. Mike answered, his voice carefully neutral. Mike, it's Sarah. Is David there? Can I talk to him? A pause. He doesn't want to talk right now, Sarah. Mike, please. I just need to explain. Explain what? Mike's voice held an edge she'd never heard before. He'd always been friendly to her, always included her in conversations. Now he sounded distant, almost cold. Look, Sarah, I've known David since college. I've watched him bend over backwards for you for years. Maybe it's time to let him have the space he's asking for. The line went dead. Sarah sat on the couch, surrounded by the home she and David had built together, and for the first time began to understand that she might have broken something she couldn't fix. Sunday morning arrived with fog pressing against the windows and Sarah still awake on the couch. She'd spent the night alternating between texting David, messages that went unread, and scrolling through social media, where the party photos had already appeared. There she was in her red dress, James's hand on her waist, her head thrown back in laughter. The comments section was carefully neutral, but she could read between the lines. Great party. Translation: Did you see Sarah Mitchell? Such a fun night. Translation: Where was David? Beautiful pictures. Translation: This is going to be gossip for weeks. At 9 a.m., her phone finally rang. David. Thank God, she answered immediately. David, I've been so worried. I need you to listen, he interrupted, his voice quiet but firm. Don't talk, just listen. Sarah's breath caught. She'd never heard him sound like this, not angry, not hurt, but something worse. Decided. I left the party Friday night around 10:30, he continued. I watched you for an hour and a half before that. I watched you touch another man's arm, his chest. I watched you lean into him, whisper to him, dance with him. I watched you light up for him in a way you haven't for me in 2 years. David, it wasn't. I said listen. His voice remained calm, which somehow made it worse. Do you know what the hardest part was? It wasn't the flirting. It was watching you finally come alive. Watching you be excited, engaged, present. All the things I've been begging you to be with me. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. I was just trying to make you jealous. I wanted you to notice me. I've never stopped noticing you, Sarah. That's the problem. I notice everything. I notice when you sigh looking at your phone. I notice when you turn away from me in bed. I notice when you're disappointed by everything I do, even when I'm trying my best. That's not fair. 6 months ago, you told me we needed more excitement. I planned that trip to Savannah. You complained about the heat. I surprised you with salsa lessons. You said it was embarrassing. I suggested we take up hiking. You said you hated bugs. Every attempt I made to be what you wanted, you rejected. Sarah wiped her eyes. So one night of stupid behavior and you're giving up. The silence stretched so long she thought he'd hung up. Then, it wasn't one night, Sarah. It was the culmination of years of feeling like nothing I do is enough. Years of watching you pull away while I chase after you. Years of feeling like I'm the backup plan in my own marriage. Where is this coming from? We've had rough patches, but every marriage does. Do you remember our anniversary? 3 months ago. Sarah went quiet. She remembered. They'd gone to dinner at the Italian restaurant where he'd proposed. David had given her diamond earrings. She'd given him a card she'd picked up at the drugstore that morning. I spent 2 months planning that evening, David said softly. I made reservations at 6 different restaurants until I got the date we needed. I had the earrings custom made, your birthstone at the center, mine flanking it. I wrote you a letter about all the reasons I still choose you every day. Do you know what you said when I gave them to you? Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. What? Oh, these are nice. Thanks. Then you spent half the dinner texting with Monica about her dating drama. The memory came back with sickening clarity. She'd thought he wouldn't notice. Or that he wouldn't care, that after 8 years, grand gestures weren't necessary anymore. I'm sorry, she said. I didn't realize. That's just it, Sarah. You didn't realize. You haven't realized for a long time. And Friday night, watching you finally pay attention to someone, just not me, I realized something too. I realized I'd been waiting for you to choose me, really choose me, for years. And you haven't. You won't. So I'm choosing myself. What does that mean? Fear crept into her voice. Are you saying you want a divorce? I'm saying I'm done being the only one fighting for this marriage. I'm done performing for someone who isn't watching. I'm done hoping that tomorrow will be the day you decide I'm enough. David, please, come home. We can talk about this. We can fix this. Can we? Can you honestly tell me that if I come home, anything will change? Will you suddenly appreciate the small things I do? Will you stop looking for something more exciting, more interesting, more anything than what we have? Sarah opened her mouth and then closed it. Could she promise that? Would she really change, or would she just promise to, then slip back into the same patterns once the crisis passed? I need time to think, David said. Real time, not just a weekend. I've already spoken to a lawyer. A lawyer? Sarah's voice rose. You've already talked to a lawyer. Just a consultation. To understand my options. I haven't filed anything. But Sarah, you need to understand that I'm serious. This isn't a ploy to get attention or make you jealous. This is me being honest about where I'm at. I'm not okay. We're not okay. And I can't keep pretending we are. What do I do? Sarah asked, tears streaming freely now. Tell me what to do. That's the thing, I can't tell you anymore. You have to figure out what you actually want. Not what sounds good, not what you think you should want, but what you really want. Because if it's not this marriage, if it's not me, then we both deserve to know that. It is you, she said desperately. I want us. Do you? Or do you just want the security of having someone who won't leave no matter how you treat them? The question hung in the air, brutal in its honesty. Sarah had no answer. I'll be in touch about next steps, David said. Take care of yourself, Sarah. He hung up before she could respond. Monday morning, Sarah called in sick to work. She sat at the kitchen table with cold coffee, staring at her phone, waiting for David to call back. He didn't. By noon, she'd worked herself into a state of righteous indignation. How dare he threaten their marriage over one night? How dare he contact a lawyer without even trying counseling? She'd made a mistake, yes, but people make mistakes. You don't throw away 8 years over one party. She called her mother. Sweetie, what's wrong? Carol's voice was immediately concerned. You sound terrible. Sarah explained everything. Well, her version of everything. The party, the harmless flirting, David's overreaction, his refusal to come home or communicate. She left out the parts about the past months, the anniversary, the growing distance she'd created. That doesn't sound like David, her mother said carefully. He's always been so level-headed. Exactly. This is crazy. He's being completely irrational. A pause. Sarah, was it harmless? What? The flirting. Was it really harmless? Because I remember you complaining about feeling bored. I remember you saying you needed excitement. Mom, whose side are you on? I'm on the side of honesty, honey. I love you, but I also remember how you treated your father sometimes, before he died. Always wanting him to be different, more adventurous, less predictable. Then after he was gone, you wished you'd appreciated him more. Sarah felt like she'd been slapped. That's not the same thing. Isn't it? After hanging up, Sarah tried Monica, expecting sympathy. Instead, she got an uncomfortable truth. Sarah, I love you, but I have to be honest, Monica said. We've all noticed how you talk about David. It's always what he's not doing, what he could be doing better. Never what he does right. That's not true. When's the last time you said something nice about him? To him or to us? Sarah tried to remember and couldn't. We've been in a rut. A rut you created. Sarah, David is a good man. One of the best I know. And you've been taking him for granted for so long that now you're shocked he's finally had enough. One by one, Sarah's friends said versions of the same thing. Some were gentler than others, but the message was consistent. This wasn't about one night at a party. This was about years of accumulated disrespect that had finally reached a breaking point. Tuesday, Sarah did go to work, but she couldn't concentrate. She kept checking her phone, hoping for a message from David. Instead, she got an email from his lawyer's office, requesting information about their shared assets. Her hands shook as she read it. This was really happening. David was really considering divorce. That evening, she drove to Mike's apartment. She'd never been there before, but she found the address online. She knocked on the door, and Mike answered, his expression immediately guarded. "Sarah." "Please, Mike. I just need to see him. 5 minutes." "He doesn't want to see you. Please." She was crying now, not caring how she looked. "I need to apologize. I need to explain." Mike sighed. "He's not here. He's at his brother's in Portland." "Portland? That's 3 hours away." He needed more distance. "Sarah, you have to understand, David's done. I've never seen him like this. It's not anger. It's worse. It's indifference." The word hit her like a physical blow. Indifference. Not love, not hate, but the absence of feeling altogether. "I didn't mean to hurt him," she whispered. "But you did. Repeatedly. And now he's protecting himself. Can you really blame him?" Wednesday night, Sarah sat in their bedroom, surrounded by evidence of their life together. Photos from their honeymoon in Greece. The quilt his grandmother had made them. His novels on the bedside table, multiple bookmarks indicating he was reading 3 at once, as always. She opened his nightstand drawer, looking for nothing in particular, and found a journal she'd never seen before. Her therapist had always warned against reading someone else's private thoughts, but Sarah couldn't help herself. The entries weren't daily, just occasional observations. She flipped to recent months. March 15th, planned surprise weekend in wine country. Sarah said she was too busy with work. Found out later she went shopping with Monica that Saturday. Not sure what hurts more, being lied to or being less important than a mall trip. May 2nd, anniversary planning in full swing. Found the perfect gift. Hope she likes it. Hope she notices. May 30th, she didn't notice. Or she did and didn't care. Not sure which is worse. August 10th, suggested counseling again. She laughed and said we don't have real problems. Maybe she's right. Maybe I'm the problem, wanting more than she can give. October 20th, watched her swipe through dating app profiles on Monica's phone. She was helping Monica choose. But she lingered on certain profiles, adventurous men, exciting lives. Everything I'm not. Starting to wonder if I'm holding her back from the life she really wants. Page after page of quiet hurt, documented in his careful handwriting. Sarah had been completely oblivious. The final entry was dated Friday, the night of the party. November 15th. Tonight was clarifying. Watched Sarah come alive for someone else in a way she hasn't for me in years. Instead of being angry, I feel relieved. The question was always, what's wrong with me? Now I finally understand, nothing's wrong with me. I'm just not what she wants. Time to stop trying to be enough for someone who doesn't want me to be. Sarah closed the journal, her chest tight with regret. Thursday morning, Sarah woke to the sound of a truck engine idling in the driveway. She stumbled to the window, still in yesterday's clothes, and froze. A moving truck sat in front of their house. 2 men were unloading a dolly. She ran downstairs and threw open the front door. David stood by the truck, clipboard in hand, looking tired but composed. He wore jeans and the navy sweater she'd given him last Christmas, the one she'd spent 5 minutes picking out while waiting in line. "What are you doing?" she asked, though the answer was obvious. "Getting my things." He didn't meet her eyes, just gestured to the movers. "They'll be quick. I made a list of what's mine. Everything else is yours." "David, please. We need to talk." "We've talked. You've said you're sorry. I believe you. But sorry doesn't change anything." "Yes, it does. It means I understand what I did wrong. It means I want to fix it." He finally looked at her, and what she saw in his eyes made her stomach drop. Mike was right. It wasn't anger. It was emptiness. "Sarah, do you love me?" The question should have been easy. "Of course I do." "Why?" She opened her mouth. Closed it. "Because we're married." Because we have history. Because I'm safe, he finished quietly. Because I'm reliable. Because I'll always be here. But love isn't supposed to be an insurance policy. It's supposed to be a choice you make every day. When's the last time you chose me? Sarah's mind raced through the past months, years. When had she last chosen him over convenience, over comfort, over what she wanted in the moment? I'm choosing you now, she said desperately. No, you're choosing not to lose the security I provide. There's a difference. He handed the movers a key. Second bedroom, the office. Everything marked with blue tape. David, I read your journal. He stiffened. You what? I'm sorry, I shouldn't have, but I needed to understand. All those entries about how I made you feel. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. That's the thing, Sarah. You didn't know because you didn't ask. You didn't notice because you weren't looking. And I'm tired of being invisible to the person who's supposed to see me most clearly. A mover came down with a box marked books. Then another with clothes. Sarah watched her marriage being packed away, box by box. I'll change, she said. I mean it this time. I'll go to counseling. I'll be better. You'll try, David said gently. And maybe you'll succeed for a while. A few weeks. Maybe months if we're lucky, and then you'll slip back into the same patterns, and I'll slip back into hoping tomorrow will be different. I can't do it anymore. So that's it. 8 years and you're just done. I've been done for a while, Sarah. I just didn't want to admit it. Friday night didn't ruin our marriage. It just made me stop pretending it wasn't already ruined. Karen Henderson appeared on the sidewalk, walking her dog. She saw the moving truck and quickly looked away, pulling her dog in the opposite direction. By tomorrow, the whole neighborhood would know. Everyone will think I'm the villain, Sarah said quietly. Everyone already does. But that's not why I'm leaving. I'm leaving because staying would be giving up on the idea that I deserve to be with someone who sees my value. Someone who doesn't need me to perform for their attention. Someone who chooses me, actively and enthusiastically, every single day. I could be that person. David's smile was sad. Maybe for someone else, someday. But not for me. Not anymore. The movers worked efficiently. By noon, David's presence in the house had been reduced to empty spaces, gaps on bookshelves, missing furniture, bare spots on walls where his photos had hung. Sarah followed him through each room, watching him take mental inventory, saying nothing. In the bedroom, he paused at his nightstand. You can keep the journal if you want. Maybe it'll help you understand. I don't want your journal. I want you. You want the idea of me. The security, the stability. But you don't want the actual person I am. If you did, you would have shown it. The movers finished loading. David signed paperwork, handed over payment. Sarah stood on the porch, arms wrapped around herself against the autumn chill. Where will you go? She asked. I've rented a place downtown. Small, but it's mine. He pulled out his keys, removed the house key from his ring, and held it out. I'll have my lawyer contact yours about the divorce proceedings. We can be civil about this. I don't have a lawyer. Then get one. We're going to need to divide assets, handle the house. Unless you want to keep it. I don't need it. I can't afford the mortgage alone. Then we'll sell it. Whatever you want, Sarah. I'm not trying to punish you. I just need to move forward. He climbed into his truck. Through the window, Sarah could see boxes stacked in the back seat, his life condensed to cardboard and packing tape. David, she called out. He rolled down the window. Yeah. Did you ever really love me? Or was I just convenient? He thought about it for a long moment. I loved you more than I've loved anyone. That's why this hurts so much. That's why I have to leave. Because loving you was killing the person I was, piece by piece, and I finally realized that's not love at all. That's martyrdom. And I'm done being a martyr. The truck pulled away, turned the corner, and disappeared from view. Sarah stood on the porch until the cold drove her inside. The house echoed with emptiness, not just David's absence, but the absence of what they'd once been, or what she'd thought they were. Her phone buzzed. "Monica, heard about the moving truck. Want me to come over?" Sarah typed back, "No. I need to sit with this." She walked through the hollow rooms, seeing them clearly for the first time in years. Here was the couch where David used to read to her on Sunday mornings. There was the kitchen table where he'd served her breakfast in bed when she was sick, carrying it carefully up the stairs. That was the window where he'd stood watching for her car each evening, always greeting her with a smile no matter how late she was. All those small moments of love she'd dismissed as routine. All those efforts she'd minimized as obligations. All that devotion she'd treated as her due rather than his gift. On the mantel, their wedding photo still smiled out at her. Two people who'd promised forever, not knowing forever required more than promises. It required presence. Attention. Choice. Sarah took down the photo and looked at David's face, frozen in time, filled with hope she'd slowly extinguished. She traced his smile with her finger. "I'm sorry," she whispered to the image. "I finally understand. I just understand too late." Outside, autumn leaves skittered across the empty driveway where the moving truck had been. Inside, Sarah began the long, painful process of understanding that some lessons only come after the price has already been paid. That some realizations arrive exactly when they're no longer useful. That sometimes, love isn't enough, not when it's finally offered in exchange for the love that was already given and rejected too many times. She set the photo down and picked up her phone, searching for divorce lawyers. If David needed her to let him go, she would. It was, she realized, the first truly loving thing she'd done for him in years. And maybe, she thought, that was the cruelest irony of all.